I will be retiring effective January 6th of 23. So just a few weeks, short weeks away.
And so how long have you been with the department?
I started as a reserve. I was hired actually by Fire Chief Ed Mashevsky in 1990 as a reserve firefighter, which in today's terms could be called like a part-time or paid-on-call firefighter. A little bit different times where we were kind of on the job training. We were trained a couple of nights a month in-house by firefighters who were instructors, as well as taking supplemental courses at the time through CVTC. There wasn't necessarily the formal fire medic programs that we see nowadays through CVTC. That was prior to those days. So,
What made you decide that you wanted to go down this path in the first place?
I think it was maybe a perfect storm of events, but I tell the story that a long time ago, it was in the late 80s, where myself and another person who happens to be an employee here, we were spending some time in northern Chippewa County, and we came across one evening. We happened to be driving down the road. We came across a horrible accident scene where there was one person who was unfortunately deceased, and another one was critically injured. Myself and him sat in the ditch with this person who was injured for about 15 to 20 minutes while we were awaiting an ambulance to arrive, because we were very remote. And in seeing that, I personally kind of had almost that helpless feeling, and almost where you're out of control. You don't have. I didn't know what to do to help, and that kind of started the wheels in motion. He and I talked about that for a long time afterward, and then a family friend of my parents happened to be a firefighter here in Chippewa, and said one day when we were on a fishing trip, said, have you ever thought about becoming a firefighter EMT? And it was like a light went off in my head, and I said, I'm going to check that out.
So when did you become the chief?
I became the chief in 2019 upon the retirement of then Fire Chief Mike Heffler.
So you have ridden out the entirety of the pandemic so far.
I have. Is it over?
I mean, I don't know, but so what has that been like? I mean, I would just think that would be a really curious time to be the chief.
It was. I came in, and I had been here obviously for a long time, and I had my focus on the things I was going to do, and all of a sudden, bam, out of nowhere, this thing called COVID hit us. And now looking back, we can maybe grin about a few things that we did and say, well, that was craziness at the time. However, living in that time, it was stressful. There's no doubt. We, first and foremost, we were trying to keep our employees safe and trying to keep the general public safe, but there was no roadmap for what we were undertaking. And I have to say, I couldn't be more happy with the powers within the city, if you will, the elected officials, the mayor, other department heads, that when we decided to form a team along with, the police department chief, we decided to form an incident command team, and we had the absolute ultimate support of our city council, of the elected officials. They believed in us. They allowed us to do our job. Did we make mistakes along the way? We sure did. We did. Looking back, we made some mistakes. Maybe we did some things we shouldn't have done, or we should have done some things better. But it was day by day by day, things were changing, and it wasn't just us. I mean, we were helping to guide, but we had a great group of employees from the top to the bottom that they rolled with the punches, so to speak. One day the guidance would say we should do this, and this, and literally hours later, CDC would come along and change guidance on something with our ambulances or with our responses as police officers or whatever it might have been. But our employees just kept adapting with it, and they did it with poise, and they did it with the utmost professionalism, even though it was stressful to them too.